was one of the greatest physicists and mathematicians of all time. His formulation of the three laws of motion is considered as the basic principle of modern physics. Let's start with Newton's first law of motion. Newton's first law of motion states that every object remains in a state of rest or uniform motion in a straight line unless and until an unbalanced force acts on it. Now, what does this mean? Let's understand. Now, this is the cabinet at rest. According to Newton's first law of motion, this cabinet will remain in its state of rest until an unbalanced force acts on it. Now, what is unbalanced force? It means when sum of all the forces acting on this cabinet is not equal to zero. That is, when net force acting is not equal to zero. Let's understand it by applying some forces on this cabinet. This is the same cabinet at rest. Here we have two forces acting on this cabinet. We know force is a vector quantity, that is, it has both magnitude and direction. As these forces acting on this cabinet are in opposite direction, the net force will be 5 minus 5, that is 0. As net force is equal to 0, it is a balanced force. And that is the reason there will be no motion, that is, the cabinet will remain at rest. Now let's apply a different combination of force. This is the same cabinet at rest. There are two forces acting in opposite direction. As the magnitude of these forces are not equal, there will be a net force acting on this cabinet, that is, net force is equal to 20 Newton minus 5 Newton, that is 15 Newton. Now, as this net force is not equal to 0, it is an unbalanced force. Now, according to Newton's first law of motion, this body will change its state of rest as an unbalanced force is acting on it. Now, this change depends on another property of a body, that is, inertia of that body. Let's study inertia in detail. What is inertia? It is the tendency of an object to resist a change. Now, this change can be in a state of rest or uniform motion. We say that inertia is laziness of that object. It solely depends on mass of an object. Let's see how. These are two cabinets at rest. What do you think? Which cabinet will require more force to change its state of rest? Definitely the one with more mass. That is the reason we say more the mass, more the inertia. There are two types of inertia. Inertia of rest, that is, the tendency of a body to remain in its state of rest. Inertia of motion, that is, the tendency of a body to remain in its state of motion. Now let's understand them by an example. Inertia of rest. This is a bus at rest. There is a person standing in this bus. Suddenly, the bus starts and this person gets a backward jerk. Why? Because the person was also in a state of rest along with the bus, but when the bus suddenly starts, the legs, which is in direct contact with the bus, came in motion, but the upper body is still in a state of rest due to its inertia of rest. And that is the reason the person gets a backward jerk. Inertia of motion. This is a moving bus. There's a person standing in this bus. Suddenly, the bus stops and the person gets a forward jerk. Why? The person was in a state of motion along with the bus. When the bus suddenly stops, the legs, which is in direct contact with the bus, came to rest, but the upper body is still in motion due to its inertia of motion. And that is the reason the person gets a forward jerk. Newton's first law is also known as law of inertia. The first law indicates that when an unbalanced force acts on an object, it changes its velocity. That is, the object gets accelerated. How this acceleration depends on the force applied on the object and how to measure that force. We will learn that in our next video, which is on Newton's second law of motion. These are two questions based on Newton's first law of motion. Do solve it and comment down the answer.